This week, the Washington Commanders look to bounce back against their Week 3 opponent here, the Las Vegas Raiders, who are traveling to Northwest Stadium in Landover, Maryland, and what should be a big-time football game here for the Washington Commanders to hopefully get themselves back in the win column and to a 2-1 record. Welcome into the Commanders Report Week 3 preview. I'm your host, Jack Sperry. Before we get into the content, we get into the keys to victory, the scheme breakdown, the roster breakdown for the Raiders, all that stuff. Make sure you guys click that subscribe button because our Raiders Report channel here, our Raiders channel here at Chat Sports, it's the largest channel that we have here at Chat Sports outside of our main channel, and they have challenged us to a sub battle, a new subscriber battle, and we are knocking right on the doorstep, guys. We are 13 subscribers behind them, but I know we can catch up in time before this sub battle ends when the ball gets kicked off on Sunday afternoon. So new viewers, we are counting on you guys. The people that have already clicked that subscribe button, the real ones, they can't help us out here. It's got to be the people that have not clicked that subscribe button yet. So if you've been watching our videos for a while and you want to help us beat the Raiders off the field in our sub battle here this week, and you want extensive Commanders coverage every single day for free on this channel, click that subscribe button right now. All right, so let's talk about this matchup, man. Of course, the Commanders coming off a tough Thursday night loss to the Green Bay Packers. Both teams here, the Raiders and the Commanders, both sitting at 1-1, but the Commanders not only have the rest advantage this week, we'll go into that here in just a second, but also they have the home field advantage as well. So obviously the big key to this one in terms of the X factor and what's going to be happening in this game is whether or not Jayden Daniels is able to go in this game. Last week, he suffered a knee sprain that to this point, at least in terms of me recording this video on Thursday, he has not practiced to this point. So we're going to be putting out an injury report on Jayden Daniels on Friday, whether or not he practices or not. Coach Dan Quinn did say that if he doesn't practice throughout this week, he will not play on Sunday. So if he doesn't practice on Friday, it's going to be Marcus Mariota. And I do think that more likely than not, we are going to see Mariota out there at QB1 this week. He's been taking the meetings and the production meetings with the broadcast team and all that stuff. He's been taking all the reps, of course, in practice. And also it's a great opportunity for him to get a revenge game against the team that kind of said no thanks. After he had a decent little stretch there with the Las Vegas Raiders a few years back, he ends up going to the Atlanta Falcons to be their starter after that short stint. But a chance to play your former team is always very motivating for these players. In terms of injuries to watch this week, Noah Brown and John Bates are going to be questionable, both with groin injuries. Obviously, Jayden Daniels is a big injury to watch as well, but we already talked about him. And then on the Raiders side, they're pretty healthy right now, actually. Just 3 players currently on their injury report. But the other 2, Jeremy Chin, and then there's one more that I can't remember right now, they're going to be good to go here. But Jackson Powers-Johnson's the one guy dealing with a concussion, didn't play last week. They can be quite fickle. Apparently, he is on a track to play on Sunday, so I do expect him to be out there, but just another injury to keep your eye on. But Washington, I think, does have a pretty big advantage going into this week. Washington is coming off ample rest. I mean, of course, they played on Thursday Night Football in Week 2, so you get those extra days to kind of reset, look at the film, make adjustments that you feel like are needed. And then also Las Vegas is coming off a short week. They just played on Monday Night Football, so they have a multi-day advantage in terms of the rest, in terms of the preparation for this one. And then not only that, but the Commanders are home, and they're going to have their home fans behind them on Sunday afternoon. So going into this one, a lot of advantages for the Washington Commanders, but obviously Jayden Daniels playing versus not playing could be the great equalizer. Now we take a look at the Las Vegas Raiders coaching and scheme breakdown here. Pete Carroll, of course, their new head coach, over 70 years old, and obviously he's got a lot of games under his belt as an NFL head coach. His current career record as a head coach in this league is 171, 121, and 1. So definitely a lot of games with the headset on there as the head man of an NFL franchise. On offense, they run a true spread system with Chip Kelly. They might run a little bit of tempo, but they're definitely going to have multiple receivers out there. They're going to put their tight end, Brock Bowers, out in the true slot quite a bit. And, of course, they're going to be trying to give Geno Smith easier looks with those spread formations. Then you get to the defensive side of the ball. Patrick Graham, one of my favorite defensive play callers and play designers in the league. Now, that Raiders roster on defense, since he's been there, has been putrid, so I don't think that his talent has really shined through because you can only do so much if you don't have enough talent in this league, but he runs a multiple front and really does a lot of stuff schematically. He really switches it up. He tailors his schemes to his personnel, which is really a sign of a great coach, in my opinion. So it'll be interesting to see what game plan he has in store for the Washington Commanders, especially because we're not sure who's going to be quarterbacking this team on Sunday. But take a look at the roster here. First on offense, Geno Smith, their new quarterback here in Vegas, had a good week 1, but a really rough week 2 versus Jesse Minter in that Chargers defense. But then along the line, you got Kolton Miller, who's really good at left tackle, but then everybody else is got some pretty big question marks. Dylan Parham, their center, Jordan Meredith, Jackson Powers-Johnson, we're not even sure if he's going to be able to play, and then DJ Glaze. This offensive line has really struggled through the first 2 weeks of the season. But then their weapons, Jakobi Meyers, very underrated wide receiver. Dante Thornton, a rookie out of Tennessee, has really impressed so far in his rookie campaign. Tre Tucker's their third receiver, kind of a speed threat. And then you got Brock Bowers, who's really their true number 1 receiver, and he's kind of like a bigger version of Cooper Kupp. Like, that is really the person that you have to hone in on in the passing game. And then, of course, they have their top draft pick, Ashton Jeanty. By the way, Raiders, you did Ashton Jeanty so dirty with that picture. He looks so tiny in that photo right there. Come on, just do a guy a favor there and just lower the camera a little bit. But you definitely got to watch out for Jeanty this week. He is a dynamic threat. Then on the defensive side of the ball here, they run a 4-2 front usually under Patrick Graham. Malcolm Kuntz and Maxx Crosby, of course, are there 2 edge rushers with Adam Butler and Thomas Booker as the guys on the interior. They were really relying on Christian Wilkins being a big part of this interior defensive line, and of course they end up cutting him for some pretty weird reasons back in July. So definitely struggling on the interior defensive line as of now. Then the off-ball linebackers, they'll usually have 2 out there, but they'll rotate them in and out given the situation. Landon Roberts is an early down linebacker, terrible in coverage. I definitely think that the Commanders can exploit him. Play action passing game, RPO passing game. On early downs, you can definitely get that going versus a guy like Roberts, who's always out of position against the pass. But then Jermaine Pratt is kind of their every down linebacker, and then Devin White usually comes in on passing downs. And then you look at the secondary here, one of the worst, if not the worst, secondaries in the league, to be quite frank with you guys. Jeremy Chinn is probably their best player in the secondary, and I like Jeremy Chinn, but with all due respect to him, man, if he's your best player in the secondary, you are in trouble, all right? Their cornerback room, Eric Stokes, is more of a number 3 corner, in my opinion. He's their number 1 guy. Kai Blue Kelly has been siphoning off yards to start this season, and then Darnay Holmes is not great in the slot either. And then Isaiah Polamalu is one of the worst starting free safeties in the league as well. So definitely going to expect a lot of zone coverage. They're going to probably try and confuse the Commanders quarterback this week because, honestly, these guys can't match up to save their lives. So still to come here on the Commanders Report Week 3 preview. Keys to victory versus the Raiders. My scouting report on Geno Smith, the Raiders quarterback, and then my official Week 3 score prediction for your Washington Commanders here in Week 3. But before we get into the rest of this week's preview, let's have a word from our sponsor today at Prize Picks. And you and I, we both make decisions every single day, but most of those decisions don't get us paid, right, guys? But on Prize Picks, your correct decisions can actually get you paid stone cold cash. Don't miss any of the excitement this season on Prize Picks, where it's good to be right. Football season is finally here, and you better believe I'm going to be getting my Prize Picks projections in all season long. Prize Picks is super simple to play. Just pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections. If you get your picks right, you could cash in. Prize Picks also puts their users first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. Prize Picks also offers Venmo, Apple Pay, MasterCard, and more for quick and easy deposits into your account this football season. And a new feature from Prize Picks that I absolutely love is injury reboots. If one of your players leaves the game in the first half and doesn't return, Prize Picks will not count it as a loss. You guys can take a look here at my Prize Picks projection for this week's Commanders action. I'm going to take the more on Brock Bowers receptions. Dude's just a beast when he's out there. Taking the more on Deebo Samuel touchdowns here. Taking the more on Matt Gay field goals made. Fingers crossed. Hopefully he plays better than last week. And I'm taking the more on the free play for Patrick Mahomes passing yards. So you guys can download the app today if you want to get a projection in for this weekend. Use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup on the Prize Picks app today. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. So I think that the keys to victory for the Commanders are roughly the same whether Jayden Daniels plays this week or not. and whether it's Jayden Daniels, Marcus Mariota, I think that the keys to victory are pretty consistent for the Washington Commanders. So there's no two separate lists or anything like that. Let's just dive right into it to the defense and what the defense needs to do. And I think it starts with the line of scrimmage. And honestly, this is both sides of the football. All right. And this is most NFL games where if you can dominate the line of scrimmage, you're probably going to come away with the win in that football game. That's why trench play is so important in the National Football League today, but I really think that it's important this week, especially on defense. But really, there's no excuse for, especially this defensive line, this defensive front, to not win the line of scrimmage. This offensive line in Las Vegas has been really bad to start the season. They haven't created really any push for Ashton Jeanty to exploit, and then they've been giving up a lot of pressure on Geno Smith. So there's definitely going to be opportunities for guys like Dorrance Armstrong, who's had a really good start to his season, Javon Kinlaw, who's had a pretty decent start to his season, Daron Payne up the middle to pressure Geno Smith up that inside track. Then maybe Von Miller on third downs can go out and get a sack on Geno Smith in these pass-heavy situations. Those opportunities should absolutely be there, especially on defense here for the Washington Commanders. Speaking of Geno Smith, make his life hard, all right? Don't give him any easy answers. Make him hold the football for a little bit and try to give your pass rush enough time to go get him on the ground. Because I think Geno is probably one of the more underrated quarterbacks in the National Football League. I ranked him in the top 10 heading into the year. Now, last week's performance certainly doesn't look like a top 10 performance, multiple interceptions, all this different stuff. It was not a good week for Geno Smith, and it was just not a good week for the Raiders offense in general, but he brings great size to the table. His arm strength is off the charts. It's probably definitely top 10, but maybe even top 5 in the league. He's got an absolute cannon. He's also got great arm talent where he can drop it a little bit and make some really crazy throws down the field. He's also extremely accurate. He's been one of the most accurate quarterbacks in the league for a very long time. Better pocket presence than he gets credit for. Better playmaking instincts out of structure than he gets credit for. And then he's also a plus rusher at his size and his age, so he can actually run the football a little bit. Now, I will say, he's a little bit inconsistent as a post-snap processor, can make some poor decisions. We saw that last week versus a really good Chargers defense. It was just not a good game for him. Under 56% completions with no touchdowns and 3 picks and under 200 yards passing is never what you want from your starting quarterback, but he can be dangerous, man. He really can, and we've seen this Commanders secondary not play well through these first 2 weeks. So, if you give Geno opportunities and especially quick answers, that could spell trouble for this Commanders defense yet again after really giving up a lot of yards last week. And the guy that they gave up those yards to was a tight end in Tucker Kraft, and once again, the team that they're playing, their kind of dynamic playmaker in the passing game is a tight end in Brock Bowers. So that's going to be a little bit of a test here for Washington to prove that they can cover tight ends or at least limit Brock Bowers' dynamic playmaking skill set as pretty much like a bigger version of Cooper Kupp in the slot. He's an awesome route runner. He's a terrific athlete. He's got great hands. He's just so tough to guard, man. And I think you have to have a much better plan. You probably got to bracket him a little bit. You got to make sure that you've got a plan for Mr. Brock Bowers, and then you got to make sure, because you're going to be given a lot of attention, double teams, bracket play, all that stuff to Brock Bowers, that you can hold up one-on-one with your other corners going up against other players. So definitely important to limit Brock Bowers in this game. He's the one weapon where I really think he can break this game open, just like Tucker Kraft did last week, man. 6 catches for 124 yards. He was averaging 20 yards a catch on Thursday Night Football last week, and of course he got in for that touchdown as well. So you got to play more physical than you played against Green Bay. You got to play with better coverage. I think you got to have better schematics, too, to be able to cover up these tight ends than what you showed last week. It just wasn't good enough, and they're going to be tested once again this week. Then on the offensive side of the ball, number one priority, and I kind of say this tongue-in-cheek, but also kind of not, triple team Mad Maxx Crosby. All right, this guy is by far and away their best defensive player, and he's the guy that can change the game for them on defense. All right, he is so freaking explosive. His first step is insane, and this guy's in the same category as a guy like Micah Parsons. He's a truly elite, I would say, top 5 edge rusher in the league, very much in the same ballpark as a guy like Micah Parsons. And, you just got to do whatever it takes to slow him down, especially because the right side of your offensive line, if you're the Washington Commanders, is banged up or they're very young. Josh Connerly Jr. has struggled in the first 2 weeks. He's a rookie. He's still learning. And then he has to go up against Brian Burns week 1, then Micah Parsons week 2, then Maxx Crosby in week 3. That is a tough gauntlet for a rookie to go up against. And then, of course, you got Allegretti at right guard, and you don't have Sam Cosmi. So, I don't care what you have to do. Put Ben Sinnott on there and just have him block, and then have the triple team on there. Put Allegretti, put Connerly, and put a blocking tight end on him, and just eliminate him that way. Like, I'm not even joking, guys. Like, that would be a pretty decent strategy on some plays because, Crosby going up against one-on-one coverage versus Josh Connerly Jr. We saw this team put Connerly on Parsons one-on-one with no help at times on the short week in week 2, and that's just going to be unacceptable, especially with the ample time to prepare. You have to have a plan for Maxx Crosby. And if you don't, it could be something that could keep the Raiders in this ball game. But then just generally from an offensive game planning perspective, make them cover the entire field, all right? I have a feeling they're probably going to double cover Terry McLaurin, and they're going to force the other receivers here. Deebo Samuel, of course, the receiving tight end, Zach Ertz, and then whoever they're going to have, whether it's Noah Brown, Luke McCaffrey, Jalen Lane out there as the third receiver. I think that, when you look at this Commanders team, especially when you look at that film versus Green Bay, you say, we're going to take away Terry McLaurin. We're going to force these other guys to beat us. All right. And, I think if you're Cliff Kingsbury, you got to find creative ways to make the Raiders cover the entire field. All right. You got to get the ball to Deebo Samuel out in space. You got to create some of that stuff with jet sweeps and orbit motions and reverse orbit motions and get the run game going and make them guard a lot of different things. And have them think about a lot of different things. That's what made this Commanders offense special last year, is that they had so many ways that they could beat you, and they really forced defenses to cover the entire field. They got to get back to doing that, and they didn't do that last week versus Green Bay. Then we get to the final key to victory here, which is to avoid back-breaking mistakes. Fumbles, interceptions, stupid penalties, killing drives, all this different stuff. The Commanders are a better football team than the Las Vegas Raiders are right now, plain and simply, guys. So this one should be a win for the Washington Commanders if they take care of business, and that's what I'm going to predict for this game. I'm going to go 30-20, and honestly, I don't think it's going to matter that much if it's Jayden Daniels or Marcus Mariota. I'm going to go 30-20. We've seen Marcus put up 30-plus points against bad defenses before in this offense without Deebo Samuel, by the way. So I think he's more than capable of putting up that number. And I think that this defense will still have their struggles, but I think that they'll do more than enough to win this game by multiple scores at home with ample rest, and this team gets back in the win column. So let me know down there in the comment section. It is your turn to predict the score. Give me your score prediction for Commanders versus Raiders down there in the comment section. That's going to be it for this week's preview. Thank you guys so much for joining us here. We do in-depth previews for the Commanders games every single week throughout the season. So if you guys want that in-depth coverage, we're also going to be doing post-game coverage after the game is over on Sunday. So if you want my post-game reaction, you want my previews for every single week, that's the coverage that we provide for you guys here on the Commanders Report every single day for free. So click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Until next time, guys, go raise some hail.